Hello everyone, Dr. Kofi here again, and welcome to my YouTube channel, TutorMed, where everything medicine is simplified. We've seen that the QRS complex can tell a number of pathologies, including ventricular hypertrophies, pericardial effusion, and low voltages. Today, we will see how to identify bundle branch blocks by examining the QRS complexes. Ready with your notepads? Let's get started. Good. Before we look at sample ECGs, let's remind ourselves of the heart's conduction system using this diagram. We have the SA node here, which is the pacemaker of the normal and healthy heart. The SA node connects to this structure here, which is the AV node. And then we have the bundle of His, which divides into the left bundle branch and the right bundle branch. The left bundle branch further divides into a less prominent anterior fascicle and then a more robust posterior fascicle. Now, it is very important to understand from first principles that the anterior fascicle of the left bundle branch is directed towards the right. It is not very clear in this diagram, but please note that while the more robust posterior fascicle is directed towards the left, and this direction is made very clear in this diagram. This has a diagnostic importance, and so please note the direction of these fibers. And so, as mentioned, we will focus on the bundle branch blocks. When the right bundle branch is blocked, we will have a right bundle branch block. And when the left bundle branch is blocked, we will have a left bundle branch block. Understandably, when we block the anterior fascicle, we get an anterior fascicular block, and then a posterior fascicular block when the more robust posterior fascicle is blocked. Now, when we have right bundle branch block together with left anterior fascicular block, the pathology of this combination is called a bifascicular block. Please note that right bundle branch block plus left anterior fascicular block together is known as bifascicular block. Now, when the main bundle of His is blocked, it gives a picture of a complete heart block because no impulses can travel from the SA node down the ventricles. And also, when the left and right main branches of the bundle of His are blocked, it is similar to blocking the main bundle of His, and so the picture will still be that of a complete heart block. We will see complete heart block features when we look at the PR interval and its diagnostic significance later in this ECG video series. So in this video, we will focus on identifying right bundle branch block, left bundle branch block, anterior fascicular block, posterior fascicular block, and then bifascicular block. Now, to identify these blocks on the ECG, we use the QRS complex. Remember, we said that when describing waves or complexes on the ECG, like the QRS complex, we get mad at them, right? M for morphology, A for amplitude, and you remember the amplitude helped us to identify ventricular hypertrophies and voltages, right? And then D for duration. So in bundle branch blocks, the morphology and duration will help us identify them. Now, the normal QRS duration should be less than 3 millimeters or 3 small boxes. This quoted in time is less than 0.12 seconds or less than 120 milliseconds. In bundle branch blocks, especially the complete bundle branch blocks, please do not confuse this with complete heart block. I said complete bundle branch blocks. the duration is more than 3 millimeters. In other words, it's more than 3 small boxes. And this makes sense because, for example, assuming the left bundle branch is blocked, the right ventricle will depolarize normally, but it will take some time for the impulses to spread to the left ventricle because its bundle has been blocked. And this increases the overall depolarization time, giving a duration more than 3 small boxes, right? Now, to identify the blocks, we focus on 2 leads. Only 2 leads. The first lead is lead V1, and as you remember from our previous lectures, lead V1 is a right-sided lead, and because it is a right-sided lead, understandably it is the most suitable to evaluate right bundle branch block. Agreed? Okay. Then the last lead is V6, and as you know, V6 is a left-sided lead, and because it is a left-sided lead, it is most suitable for evaluating left bundle branch block. Very good. But I also want to point out that an increased duration of a QRS complex, apart from being a bundle branch block, can also point to ventricular rhythms. But for the purposes of this lecture, an increased duration points to a bundle branch block, whether right or left. Okay, let's begin with the right bundle branch block. Now, when there is right bundle branch block, there is no conduction of impulses down the right bundle branch. Remember, we said the septum is the first to depolarize and it occurs in the left to right direction. We established this in our lecture on the introduction to QRS complex. Do you remember? If you haven't seen that video yet, kindly find the link to that video in the video description below. Good. And so because we are focusing on V1, which is a right-sided lead, the septal depolarization will be recorded as a small positive R wave because the impulse will come towards V1. Why? Because the depolarization moves from left to right. Very good. Now, usually the right ventricle and the left ventricle depolarize simultaneously for an intact bundle branch system, a system which has no block in it. But since the right bundle branch is blocked, the impulse will first reach the left ventricle, and lead V1 will see the left ventricular depolarization as a positive wave. Why? Because V1 is a right-sided lead, and then the left ventricular depolarization moves towards the left, and so this will be a negative S wave. Then eventually, the impulses reach the right ventricle from the left ventricle, because remember that the heart cells are interconnected by gap junctions which allow for the spread of impulses. It is just that the spread of impulses to the right ventricle this time will take longer, and so finally the right ventricle would also depolarize, and then V1 will see this as a positive R wave. Why? Because it is a right-sided lead, and so it sees the right ventricular depolarization coming towards it. Meaning, if we combine all these events in lead 1, we will have a small R wave which is from the septal depolarization, a deep negative S wave from left ventricular depolarization, and then an R wave which is from right ventricular depolarization, but that R wave is distinguished by labeling it as R prime from the first R wave, and so this would give the M pattern. We will demonstrate this M pattern in the next slide. Good. Also remember that due to the delay in the right ventricular depolarization, the entire QRS complex duration would delay, giving a duration more than 3 millimeters. Very well. Please do not forget to like and share this video to support us, and then subscribe for more simplified medical concepts. On this slide, let's illustrate right bundle branch block on the ECG. Now this is an ECG showing V1 and then V6. And since we are discussing right bundle branch block, please focus on V1 because it is the best lead to evaluate right bundle branch block. Now let's examine the QRS complexes in this lead V1. First, the morphology. Now see that after the P wave in lead V1, we have the QRS complex, which is made up of this small positive R wave first, and this from the septum, remember. Then this S wave from the left ventricular depolarization, and another R wave which is distinguished from the first by naming it R prime. And so here you see that the morphology shows an M pattern, often described as the ears of a bunny or a rabbit. The R wave, the S wave, and the R prime forms an M pattern, or it looks like the ears of a rabbit. And then, so you see that the morphology here is an R, S, R prime, and that shows the M pattern. And if you check the duration of this QRS, which technically is an R prime very well, you would see that the duration is 4 millimeters, and this is more than 3 millimeters. And so this qualifies this ECG to have a right bundle branch block. And so in summary, you look at V1, then you look for M pattern, and then the duration for more than 3 millimeters. Now you would agree with me that if the right bundle branch is incompletely blocked, you may have the M pattern, but because it is not completely blocked, the impulses may reach the right ventricle relatively faster, making the duration somewhat normal. And so to identify an incomplete right bundle branch block, you see an M pattern in V1 but a normal duration of the QRS complex, or technically the RSR prime. Now let's see left bundle branch block. Here, similarly, there will not be any conduction down the left bundle branch since there is a block in it. Now remember that septal depolarization normally occurs in the left to right direction, remember, but because there is left bundle branch block, this will occur in the opposite direction. Instead of left to right, it will be from right to left. Now recall V6 is the best lead to use in the evaluation of left bundle branch block, and so since the septal depolarization is now moving from right to left, V6 will record this event as a small positive R wave. Then, because there is a block in the left conduction pathway, impulses spread to the right ventricles first. Now V6 records this as a negative wave, which is an S wave, because V6 is a left-sided lead viewing depolarization in the right ventricle, and so it will be moving away from it. And then eventually, the impulses will reach the left ventricle after it has spread from the right ventricle. But again, this takes longer, and so V6 will record this left ventricular depolarization as an R wave because V6 is a left-sided lead. And so adding all together, in V6 you would have an R, which is from the septum, an S, which is from the right ventricle, and an R prime, which is from the left ventricle, resulting in an M pattern. But this S wave typically gives a notch. We will demonstrate this on the ECG. And then again, because of the delay, the overall duration will be more than 3 millimeters or 3 small boxes. And so really, the way I like to think about these two blocks is that both would have the M pattern and then long duration. But if this M pattern and long duration occurs in V1, then we have a right bundle branch block, which is complete. But if it occurs in V6, we have a left bundle branch block. Very good. And so let's see left bundle branch block on the ECG. Now this is another ECG showing leads V1 and then V6. between the two, which lead is best for evaluating left bundle branch block again? Yes, you are right, lead V6. And so let's examine the morphology of the QRS complexes in lead V6. And so first, you have an R wave, and this R wave is from the septum, remember. Then it is followed by an S wave, which is just a notch, and this is from the right ventricle. And then we have the R prime, which represents the depolarization from the left ventricle. So if you look at the morphology, again you see the RSR prime pattern, which gives the M pattern. And if you study the duration of this QRS complex in V6, you'd see that it is 3.5 small boxes, in other words, 3.5 millimeters. And this gives a left bundle branch block, the complete type, because of the duration. And so in summary, to look for left bundle branch block, go straight to V6 because it's a left-sided lead, and then look for M pattern there, and then duration more than 3 millimeters. And just like we established for incomplete right bundle branch block, if you have an incomplete left bundle branch block, again, the word incomplete left bundle branch block, you will have the M pattern in V6, but with the normal QRS duration. Good. And so lastly, let's look at how to identify bifascicular block in a very brief and simple way. Remember, we said that bifascicular block is a combination of a right bundle branch block and then a left anterior fascicular block, which is the same as anterior fascicular block anyways. Now let's illustrate this on the ECG. Again, let's acknowledge that this ECG is from learntheheart.com, a very resourceful place where I get my ECG samples for demonstration. And so to identify bifascicular block, first we look for right bundle branch block. You know what to do, right? You go to lead V1, and then you will see that the first in the QRS complex in lead V1, the first wave is a small R wave. It is followed by an S wave, and a very big R wave we are going to designate as R prime. And this is a typical M pattern. And then more importantly, you see that if you check the duration very well, it has a duration of 4 millimeters, which is more than 3 millimeters. And so this is a right bundle branch block. Now, usually, right bundle branch block is commonly associated with right axis deviation. Usually, that is what it should be, while left bundle branch block is associated with left axis deviation. And so let's check the axis of this ECG. Now, using the quadrant method, please remember we've treated how to check for axis, and it's in our second video, so please find the link in the video description below and then watch it if you have still not understood how to check for the axis. Now, using the quadrant method, you see that the QRS complex is positive in lead V1, in lead 1, and then negative in lead AVF, and that is a left axis deviation. So you see that there is a discordance because we said that right bundle branch block should be associated with right axis deviation. And so this discordance between the right bundle branch block and then the axis deviation is as a result of a left anterior fascicular block. Remember, we said that a left anterior fascicular block gives a left axis deviation. And so if you have a right bundle branch block with a left axis deviation instead of a right axis deviation, they make a diagnosis of a bifascicular block. Very good. And so I hope this tutorial demystified bundle branch blocks. I hope so. Thanks for watching, and kindly support us by liking and sharing this video, and then subscribing to our channel. Then leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and you can contact me with your questions via the email blissmed22@gmail.com. And then see you in our next video. Until then, I want to say adios. Bye. Now, let's just briefly, but in a simple way, discuss the anterior and posterior fascicular blocks. And so for the anterior fascicular blocks, let's make these statements. We want to say that the anterior fascicle is the most commonly blocked compared to the posterior fascicle. Most of the times, it is the anterior fascicle which is blocked. And remember the statement we made in the very beginning regarding the direction of the anterior and posterior fascicles? Recall we said that the anterior fascicle is directed towards the right, and the posterior fascicle is directed towards the left. And so, a blockage of the anterior fascicle will make the posterior fascicle dominant, in that the impulses will be directed more leftward because the posterior fascicle is directed to the left. And this will manifest on the ECG as a leftward deviation or a left axis deviation without an abnormal QRS duration. And so if you have a left axis deviation with a normal QRS duration, it may point to an anterior fascicular block. Now the posterior fascicular block. Again, I want to stress that the fiber is directed towards the left. And so if it is blocked, the anterior fascicle will be dominant, in that the impulses will be directed more rightward because the fiber of the anterior fascicle is directed rightwards. And this will show on the ECG as right axis deviation without an abnormal duration QRS complex, or in other words, with a normal duration QRS complex. And so please note that left axis deviation with a normal QRS complex might indicate anterior fascicular block, and then while right axis deviation with a normal QRS duration would indicate a posterior fascicular block.